By a show of hands, I'd like for you to tell me if you've ever been in an experience that you got so angry that you could not remember what or why you got angry with in the first place.
No.
Raise your hand.
So I want to share a personal experience. As you all know, because I mentioned this in the last homeroom speech, it's been 15 years since I last saw my father. I want to share with you the last experience I ever had with my father, and it went a little bit something like this. It was a Friday night. I was in the 10th grade. And at the time, my parents were already divorced for a few years, and we were going to my father every other weekend for Shabbat. He lived down the block from my mother. It was pretty convenient. It wasn't too much of a hassle. But my father had this strategy with me in particular where he wanted to lecture me and he wanted to sit me down and tell me what I was doing wrong and, how I needed to correct myself. And I really resented it and I didn't appreciate those interactions.
You did or didn't?
I did not. And finally, there was one moment where my father, on this particular Friday night, sat me down, and I said to myself, I don't need this anymore. I'm tired of the same nonsense over and over and over again, and all of a sudden I became enraged. And my emotions took over, my body took over, my thoughts. And the next thing I knew, I told my father, Dad, I'm out of here. I don't need this anymore. And it was the last time I ever saw my father. Over time, it became a thing where he wanted me to apologize. I thought he should apologize. And enough time just blew by where we never reconnected ever again. 15 years later, one stupid experience when I was a stupid teenager, overtaken by an emotion called anger, and I'm still dealing with the consequences of those actions. I want to make a public service announcement. I want to call a spade a spade. I want to recognize a wrong that I feel is inherent within our society. When it comes to physical health, everybody takes things very seriously, right? We make doctor's appointments, we eat special diets, we take medicines, right? When my throat hurts, I recognize that something's wrong, and so I do something externally to correct and amend what's wrong. And from a physically health standpoint, we take care of our bodies. But when it comes to mental health, when it comes to recognizing that there's a discrepancy with my own ability to be my best self mentally or emotionally, you know what we've come up with? The best script that we have? Bro, you need anger management. There's something wrong with you. Go to a shrink. That's the best we've got as a society. And it's a problem, and it's not fair. Because sometimes, just like when we get sick physically and we might have an ache or a sore or something, so too your brain mentally goes through those same ideas, right? There's something that's getting in the way of you being your best self, and there are remedies and there are supports that you can put into place within your own respective life that can help get you back on track, can help allow you to be your best self. So I'm wondering, when are we going to get past this stigma of mental health? That it only belongs to people with issues and problems, and that's not the case necessarily. In my opinion, for whatever it's worth, every single human being on this planet can benefit from mindfulness, from self-reflection, caring about your mental health can do wonders just as it does for your physical health. So my question to everybody in this room that raised their hand, that they've been through an experience like maybe I have, where emotions took over and your rage got the best of you, I'm wondering if now is the time that we can say to ourselves, I'm not happy with these results, and I'd like to do something different about it. I don't have to make a whole federal case. I don't have to do this whole thing. There's small, practical, tangible ideas that I think we can incorporate into our daily life that will make life that much more meaningful, that much more enjoyable. So if you're one of these people who'd like to flip the script, I welcome you to entertain the following remedy, the following solution. There's a concept in football called Monday morning quarterback. Does anybody know what this concept means? Aslan, what is Monday morning quarterback?
So Monday morning quarterback is like he's not good.
What does that mean, he's not good?
It's like, so like Monday, it's like Monday night is like that game, special game. And like Sunday is also a special game because like Sunday. And like Monday morning, there's just nothing going on. So like if you're part of
Okay, so not really. Okay? Monday morning quarterback is a concept that works like this. Traditionally, most quarterbacks play on Sunday afternoon. On Monday morning, that's when they spend the time to reflect on their performance on Sunday. And they say things to themselves like, I wish I made that pass, or I wish I made a different decision. You understand the concept? Good. Before you can enter in what's called Monday morning quarterback, we must recognize a very fundamental idea. There are two yous. For every single one of you that I am looking at right now, I know that there are really two of you. There's you in your normal, regular self, when you are not overtaken by emotion. This version of you has a very easy job rationalizing, making sense of things, coming up with great strategies and ideas to make life that much more meaningful and effective. That's who I usually get to see. But there is another side of you that maybe you are not so aware of exists. This side of you is the person who's overtaken by emotions. And it doesn't really matter what the emotion is. In this particular example, I'm talking about anger, but it could be happiness, it could be anxious, it could be a number of different emotions. When we are emotional, we lose the ability to rationalize and to use our logic. That's just the way it goes. And so I'm wondering if we can just take a look at some of the things that we typically do, or some of the things that we typically see when people are overtaken by emotion. For some of us, it might mean that we yell at our parents and we're disrespectful towards them. For others, it might be that I'm an angry football player that decides to whack somebody over the head with a helmet. For me, it was I decided to walk out on my father's house for the last time in my life, which I didn't know I was doing at the time. But in all of these scenarios, you know what the end result is? When we finally come crashing down and the emotions subside and we move past our emotional states, we always leave with regret. We always say, I wish I didn't do that. Now this past Thursday night, as I just referenced, Myles Garrett, a football player on the Cleveland Browns, was so enraged, for God knows, I don't know why. They were up 21-7. There were 44 seconds on the clock. The game was over. The Steelers were trying to still make a play, this and that, whatever. He got into a tussle with the quarterback, Mason Rudolph, and one thing led to another. He became so overtaken by emotions, he took his helmet and he whacked Mason Rudolph over the head with it. No regard for his well-being, no regard for his own mental state. He recognized that he just wasn't in a right frame of mind to rationalize and to make the best judgment call. And later he issued an apology saying, I was wrong. I was selfish. I shouldn't have done that. But you know who's saying that? Miles Garrett. Not emotional. His regular self. That's the guy who's saying it. So boys, here's the strategy. We spoke about Monday morning quarterback. Number one, we have to commit ourselves to this idea of self-reflection. I need to be willing to say to myself, I'm going to review the film. And every experience that I have, good or bad, I'm going to say, I want to learn more about who I am and how I operate. And so there are two very specific words that I'm going to focus on that will help us understand this concept. Number one is called antecedents, and number two is called consequences. Antecedents are the things that come before the negative experience. So it could be any type of trigger. It could be a place, it could be a person, it could be an item. Anything that I identify as something that triggers me to be my worst self is what's called an antecedent. Consequence are the results that follow after my negative experience. So I got angry, I walked out of my father's home. I got angry, I took a helmet and I bashed somebody over the head with it. I got angry and I yelled at the teacher or my parent and I told them that they were a worthless human being who was incompetent. Consequences, results. I know a lot of us think that consequence is punishment. Consequence is not a punishment. Consequence is a form of a punishment. Sorry, a punishment is a form of a consequence. Results, consequences are results. So boys, here's the challenge. Monday morning quarterback, are you willing to step up to the plate or not? Are we willing to recognize that our mental needs are just as our physical? And are we willing to move past this stigma of, yo bro, you need to shrink because you got some anger management? No, you don't have anger management. There's some things that don't always click and make sense, and just like we would for physical, we're going to address with the mental. So here's the proposal. Self-reflect. Be willing and vulnerable enough to review your own film and say to yourself, what are my antecedents? What are my consequences? What are the things that typically make me my worst self? And then say to yourself, how do I avoid those things? Or how do I work on those things? The more you commit yourself to a life of mindfulness and self-reflection, the better your odds will be of having the most meaningful, efficient, and successful life. What do you want to do with your own life? The choice is yours. Make the decision. Shabbat shalom.